Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Debating for America's Youth. Today, we have another awesome guest interview. Today, I'm interviewing the Academic Director of NSDA China. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Nathan.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Before I begin this interview, I'd like to say at the same time this is being released, there's also another episode on Cale's podcast, so you should go and check that out as well. They'll both be releasing. We're going to be talking about different things, but it'll still be an awesome experience on both sides of the content.
Absolutely. And the podcast is called Speaker Points.
Yeah, awesome. It'll be linked down in the description. So my first question is, for my viewers who don't know, because a lot of my viewers are located in the United States, could you just explain NSDA China for the people?
Sure. So NSDA China is the official partners with the US NSDA. It's been around for, this is our 9th year. So it's still relatively young in comparison with the US. And as it's being young, we don't have as many events. We do primarily public forum debate and original oratory, and it boasts over about 10,000 members actively participating. So although it's relatively new, it's growing very, very quickly. We have tournaments all over the country. Our regional tournaments that qualify for nationals is about 18 of them per semester. So it's pretty big in certain parts of China, and it's growing very rapidly.
That makes a ton of sense. What differences, because you used to be located in the United States, what differences, like big differences, have you seen between the United States and China, like within the debate community?
So I should probably let everyone know who isn't familiar that NSDA China, our competitions are still in English, even though we're in Chinese. So there is an element of debating as a second language. So there was a kind of language gap in the beginning where with the level of competition has grown exponentially because we attract more kind of native English speakers or speakers that are really good with their English. But other than not having as many formats, which is one of the major differences, another thing I would say is since we only have one debate format, public forum debate, it kind of becomes a catch-all for any type of debate. So even though it's very much more like public forum in the United States than any other event, you can also see elements of Lincoln Douglas, for example, like our nationals topic a couple years back was was retribution versus rehabilitation in the criminal justice system. So that's kind of a little bit more of maybe what you would expect an LD topic to be. So is some like morality involved in some of the things, but that's just a few of them, not all of them. And then we got little elements of policy in that the first generation that came over to China to start this league and get it going were by nature policy debaters. I mean, usually the people in the debate community that want to continue giving back, that decide to make this their career, become full-time coaches, generally tends to be in the policy camp. Not that there aren't big PFers and LDers that stay and be coaches and stuff like that. Just policy has a longer history, so you're more likely to get those lifers that were policy lifers. So there's a little bit of that kind of influence in terms of very quick speaking, heavy influence on evidence, which I think is a trend you're seeing in US public forum as well. So it's not unique to us. And then also BP, British parliamentary debate, was really the only type of debate in China before we came around. And it's really the only type of competition here. So you have judges from the BP families. You have competitors that have done both. So you'll also sometimes see a little bit of a style that's a little bit more rhetorical. But it's a big mixture. It's a melting pot of different debate ideas, since it's really considered to be the most prestigious type of debate to do in China.
That makes a ton of sense. And you talked about this level of competition. I personally watched the original oratory national champion in 2020, and I was blown away. So if you would have told me that person was just debating at NSDA like nationals in the United States, I would have believed you, because it was at that level. Like it was awesome. So you kind of talked about how you only have a couple of events. Like, I guess, what are some of the steps for creating more events or adding new events to your guys' national league?
Well, there's a couple things about that. The first one I'd say is, we don't want to move too quickly and cannibalize ourselves. A event needs to gain some traction and get a community built up around it before we risk fragmenting it by making more events that separates people into different categories. So, and that takes a considerable amount of time. That's not just going to take 1 year, because you don't just need people to know what the event is, but you need people to have done it for 4 years, graduated, come back and judge, become coaches, things like that. So we definitely want to take a measured approach to introducing new events. We also want to introduce new events that are unique, ones that truly will grab students that maybe don't feel they have a home in the events that we already have. So we've been experimenting with doing extemporaneous speaking, for example. We've had it at our nationals for the past 2 years, and Shanghai Regionals has tried it out too. And it's been very successful. I love it. The kids have really been drawn to it. So that's probably the direction we'll go for the next event. But original oratory, give you that example. We started that, I think, 4 years into the league. So we had 4 years of public forum, then we introduced original oratory as well. And we're just now getting to the point where original oratory can compete with public forum debate in terms of its size or number of students interested. And so it really is a slow burn. It takes a while, especially when we've got a limited audience, since it's in English in China. And though English is well spoken in China, it is still a second language. It would be like trying to have a Spanish debate league in the United States. Like, you would have a dedicated following, but there's just kind of an inherent roadblock to making it truly ubiquitous and mainstream for everyone. So we've got to be really measured in our approach to that, and we have to consider what events will really uniquely benefit more students, bring more in rather than fragment out.
Mm-hmm. That makes a ton of sense. And you talked about your membership. How does NSDA China look to expand their membership? What kind of approaches do they use to attract more members in? And this could also be helpful to coaches or students who are trying to get more people onto their team on a more local level as well.
Well, it's actually pretty interesting that the NSDA China model is a little different than the US model. And the best way to sum it up is that the NSDA China model is much more centrally organized than the US model. So in the United States, it's very decentralized, right? Like, every state has their own speech and debate league within NSDA. Even different districts may have their own governing bodies or boards or that sort of thing. And you could go from one district in a state to another, and you have a completely different style of debate or different norms that they follow. Really, the US NSDA does a lot of great work, but until this year, really, their main focus was just that national tournament. They weren't, they're not deeply involved in the districts or what's going on there. I mean, they set rules and guidelines and they oversee and stuff, but they're not hands on the ground there. And that's very different with NSDA China. We run every single regional tournament that is had. Up until a couple years ago, every single tournament that was run, NSDA China had some amount of direct involvement with. Sometimes we'll partner with other companies or other schools, and they will take a role, but we'll always be involved in some way. We're trying to expand that by what we call C-level tournaments, which is much more the United States model of allowing schools to do their own tournaments that we sanction, allow them to award NSDA points, but we're not there necessarily running the tournament ourselves. Now, as far as increasing membership, we have a kind of every level of attack. We in our marketing, we go after parents and convince them that speech and debate is essential for their students. I go around the country speaking to administrators, teachers, to convince them that they need to have a speech and debate program at their school. But I also speak to students directly and talk about the value they can get out of it. And one of my favorite things to do as a coach or a teacher, I've had success as a coach, coaching students to have very high finishes in national tournaments and stuff like that. But really, the thing I enjoyed doing the most was broadening out the team, getting the kids who, maybe came to debate class scared to talk in front of anyone, and just wanted to feel better and more confident the next time they had a presentation in front of the class or something. Those are the kids I kind of get more excited about reaching out to than the dedicated debater like myself, or maybe like you, that grew up knowing I was going to be a debater. I loved it and stuff. Like, I like working with those kids, but I much more enjoy reaching those further out students. And so we talk with students and try to convince them that, hey, this participation in this is about more than just getting into a good college, increasing your test scores. Although speech and debate undoubtedly improves those odds, and there's evidence and studies to back that up. But what's most important and valuable is that the confidence building and the finding your voice, those cliche taglines, but they're true, about how it really prepares young people to be advocates for themselves and what they believe in. That's kind of the message we most put out to students to get them involved. And we tell them, hey, and it's a big culture fight here in China, because in China there is very much a culture of, if you're not, I'll steal from Ricky Bobby's dad in Talladega Nights, if you're not first, you're last. That really is like the mentality of education and parents in China. And so if they don't think they're going to get a trophy at their first tournament, their attitude becomes, then this is a waste of my time. I need to do something else, right? And so we're very much fighting that culture. I felt like it was easier to fight in America. Parents bought into that idea. But that's kind of the biggest way we're trying to recruit, is change that mindset to understand that the process is more important than any accolade that comes with competing.
That makes a lot of sense. And I've seen students like firsthand who come in and expect us to win. And for the most part, unless you have some prior experience, the work is what gets you good at the event. That's a really good point. And I'll say that how I figured out about your program is through Instagram and a meme. And so like youth, like outreach through that way also really works, because that's what a lot of kids are, on right now. So I don't know if we talked about this in our podcast, but what made you personally interested in going to China and working with and starting NSDA China yourself?
Sure. I'd say there's probably some similarities in my story you'll find with other coaches that have come to China. There's a pretty common theme of kind of being a little lost. I was in a situation where I was looking for another job, and it was at not an opportune time for a teacher or coach. There's like a hiring season for a debate coach or a teacher. And if you're not looking for a job in that season, schools aren't looking for you. They're not looking to hire teachers and stuff. So I was in one of those times a year where I needed a job, but there wasn't really a lot of looking in the United States. And I was just applying to everywhere. This was, 2015, 2014. And I don't know why, but it just seemed like the job market was pretty filled, and I was literally applying to everything. I interviewed with Snapchat at one point. I was looking for just expand my horizons. And then there was a guy named Stefan Bouchard. He's pretty well known in the debate community. I remembered he was always posting things on forums and on social media about teaching in China or doing debate coaching in China. And so I decided to send an email, and he got right back to me. I had an interview with the head of DuPont Education, which is the partner that sponsors NSDA China here. Everything sounded good, and I was at the time 30 years old, 29 or 30, and I felt like if I was going to make a big move across the world, this was probably going to be my last chance. I'm not that old, but at the same time, you know, the longer it goes, the more you're kind of comfortable, and the more you have to lose or risk if you try to make a big move like that. So I had nothing holding me down. I decided to go for it. I didn't speak a lick of Chinese. I still don't speak very good Chinese. And got on a plane and was over here. And it was by far the best choice I made in my life. If you'll allow me to do a short little plug, I'll say, if you're an educator or a teacher, I mean, the amount of respect and pay you get in China is second to none.
That makes sense. So you talked a lot about what like things are working like well in like the United States NSDA and like what you're trying to apply there. Vice versa, what do you think some things that are working really well with NSDA China that you wish that like more programs, speech and debate in America would adopt?
That's an interesting question. To be honest, we're trying to aspire to be like in a US NSDA, you know, we want to be at that level, that high up. Maybe one thing, being academic director, I feel like I'm going to be tooting my own horn a little bit, and I don't like to do that. So I'll try to go by what others have said. I know that a new member of our team, Gordon Pierre, mentioned this, and I've heard you mention it too. And one thing I think we do well is community outreach. We're small enough to be able to have kind of a little bit more of a personal, fun touch with the community. We're very responsive to them. They can call us directly. We can talk to them. You talked about the memes on Instagram and just having fun ways to interact with the community. We're always doing articles and changing things. So it feels a little bit more like there's some ownership over the national level of the league in NSDA China. I would say the level of our tournament competitions, even from the lowest level, just the amount of respect that's given to the community and what we do, and is just second to none. And I don't want this to come off and saying like I'm criticizing the US NSDA. I'm trying to find ways where we particularly excel, and I'm not saying that any of that is necessarily bad in the US NSDA community, but there really is among those who compete in NSDA China that really has a reverence and respect for the opportunity the league provides them.
Yeah, no, I don't think it came off that way. I mean, I asked you a specific question, so you're just answering. That makes a ton of sense. So my next question would be, do you have a message for the speech and debate community? I mean, everyone watching this video, is there anything that you want them to take away from this?
Well, my pet peeve and my what's the phrase? The hill I'll die on as a coach is there's nothing that irks me more than this culture or this mindset of the focus on the judge screw and the focus on that debate has to be 100% inherently objective. Now, I do want to, objectivity makes the competition more respected, and there needs to be a level of objectivity. But I guess what I'm getting to is that I think the growth and education of students is held back when the community gives in to this attitude of it's the judge's fault, I lost, not my own. Because life is not that way. If you have a boss that you think made a bad decision on your report, you don't get to go to his boss and complain and ask him to have him thrown out of the company. and ask for your report to be taken in another way. Yet debaters will send messages to the tournament directors, personal messages on Facebook or text messages saying, our judge was bad, we lost, you should give us the win, and I demand it, and I was perfect, there's nothing I did wrong. And it's just, I've never seen a debate round. I've been doing this for 20 years. I have never seen a debate round where I would say that one team or one debater won 100% of every argument. Now, of course, I have seen rounds and I've seen debate rounds where I would have absolutely thought Team A won, they deserve the win, but Team B was the one that was voted for. I have seen that before. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But what I am saying is I've never seen a round in that situation where Team A was perfect, where Team A had nothing that they could have done better. There is always room for improvement. There's always ways to win that judge again if you were to do that round over again. It is very rare that you actually genuinely have a judge that makes a bad decision because they want to be unfair. You know, that the debate committee throws around words like fairness, this is unfair that they voted that way. And I feel like we're losing the meaning of that word. It may not be a decision you liked, but there's something that the other team did to win that judge. And absent of the judge just saying something like, I don't like you, I'm not going to vote for you, rarely would I ever say a decision was quote unquote unfair. The judge made their decision for a reason. You would be better served and you will be more likely to win in the future if you figure out why the judge made that decision and then adapt in your future rounds and improve the way you debate to be more appealing to a wider range of judges. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you will become a national champion. And the ones who just sit around and complain that I did everything perfect, it's not my fault that I lost, I have nothing I can improve upon, those are the ones that go through life continuing with that mindset and missing out on opportunities, not growing, not becoming better. I just feel like I see more of it in the community lately, and maybe it's just more present. We've got things like Reddit and we've got internet and stuff like that, so you just see more complaints and stuff. I just know where I grew up in Oklahoma, I think I talked about this for a second in a podcast, so I won't go into it in super detail, but we had lay judges and we had TOC champions judging in the same tournament, and never once did I ever hear of someone going to their coach and saying, oh, I got a lay judge, they didn't know what topicality meant. I never heard the coach go, oh, I'm going to find that judge, I'm going to make sure that they never judge again, that's terrible, this is they shouldn't be allowed. They would go, well, why didn't you explain it to them? They would challenge the debater to improve rather than try to change the judging result after it's already happened. And the last thing I'll say about it, I know I've gone kind of a rant, but this is like my crusade. Last thing I'll say about it is if we don't change this mindset, you're going to see the same thing that happened to policy debate, happened to public forum and LD and the other one. And that is, it will become a format that is only for the super technical, it'll be a format that benefits the people who have tons of coaches and networking and politics and can influence other judges to vote and think in a certain way. And you'll see the community shrink and become smaller. And I love policy debate, but one of the reasons public forum has become more popular in lots of parts of the United States is because policy debate tried to make it a club where only these technical people can be a part of the club. And I think that mindset of every judge has to make the same decision in every round the same way is part of what creates that process.
That makes a ton of sense. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a really informative interview.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I know I went on rants somewhat, so I hope if you disagreed with me, anyone out there, and anything I said, I welcome that disagreement. I may sound passionate, but I will recognize that I can be wrong about things too. Don't think I'm pig-headed about it.